Hello, everyone. It's really nice to see so many familiar faces again, and that we all made it here despite the strikes. So well done, everyone. I'm going to hand over first to my panelists, fantastic group of people, to introduce themselves. Karen, do you want to go first?
Hi, I'm Karen Baker, Shipper HQ. Although it's got ship in it, a lot of people think that's post-order software. We're not ShipStation. But we do delivery experience in the checkout, so you could call us a bit of an Amazon competitor in the checkout. I've been originally from UK and I live in Austin, Texas, so sorry about that.
Hi everyone, I'm Valentin Radu. I'm the founder at OmniConvert. We are helping a lot of e-commerce companies to grow their revenue by testing, by doing A/B testing and website personalization. I'm from Bucharest. And I'm glad to be here, and I brought my family as well, so they are somewhere around here taking a walk.
Hi guys, I'm Alex from bargainmax.co.uk. We are an online retailer for toys and games. I've been in the industry for about 8 years now. I'm married into it. It's really, really great. This is my first Meet Magento, so it's really, really great to be here and meet so many of you.
Excellent. We've seen, anything can happen at checkout, and we've seen a trend towards so many different options. Some checkouts have dozens of options, others keep it very clean. There are fewer options, but what we're just going to talk today a little bit around, what's far too much, what's far too little, that kind of Goldilocks, what is the just right. So to your mind, can there be too much? What is far too little? What is far too much? As a merchant, it'd be interesting to get your perspective, and whether, Valentin, you have any kind of data around that, and particularly around perhaps shipping options. There's payment options, there's alternative payment options, there's buy now, pay later, shipping, returns. So much to go on to the checkout. It'd just be interesting to see what you think. Who'd like to take that first? Karen?
I can jump in if you want. And I would go second and third on the rest of them because they're harder. I think, from a shipping perspective, obviously, in the UK, free is the predominant option, right? But it showing that is just becoming something that you must do at this point. But I think it's really important that you don't over confuse the customer with too many options around what's happening or too many different variables on it. People want to trust you. They've already decided to kind of go into that checkout process and go in for that purchase, and now you want to get them to commit. So things like we don't want to show them every courier in the world, so do something like rate shopping underneath, get the cheapest that's the 2-day. If you want to give them enhanced options, so the next day, tell them what date they're going to get it, but don't throw out too much. Nobody wants to go on there, get 10 options, have to work out which one's the best for them. So 2 or 3 options, I think it's great. And just sort of keeping it slim on that, and taking that click and collect up, so that that's a pre-checkout thing, because most people are going to want to know before they get into that checkout, I'm going to come and pick this up. So if you can get that out and get that complexity out, we see people just throwing the whole lot, and it's really not required.
I bet, Valentin, you have even some interesting stats around that.
Yeah, we run a lot of tests. We have seen 50,000 A/B tests on the merchants' websites, and we've seen that there are some diminishing returns. We all know about the Pareto's law, like 20% of the people that we know are bringing 80% of the good feelings that we have in our lives, and that's the same with the payment options. So after too many options, it's not good. So I would go to 3 to 4. There are some countries, for instance, in South America, where they have even 12, but the distribution is not like it's here in the UK, for instance. So after some moments, you need to place your bets, and the best way to understand how is the best is to actually test out. The problem with testing out is that if your website doesn't have enough visitors, then you can't do it. So basically, I would go for maximum 3, 4 payment options, and add another more payment options as an option. Because if you do that, you are covering all the versions. So basically, that's my take on this number of payment options.
So it's quite interesting because as a retailer over the past couple of years, we've made a big attack on offering multiple different payment options. We offer 3 buy now pay later options now. We have multiple quick checkout options like the PayPal, the Amazon Pay, Google Pay, Apple Pay. And what we've found is that there's never too many as long as they're relevant to your customer base. There's no point for us having Alipay in the UK. No one uses it. Yeah, you can say it's another option, it's another great option, but for us it's about having as many as possible within the relevance of your market and your target audience as well.
So talking of audience, actually, how much does the audience impact the checkout? How do you kind of look at your profiling of your audience and decide, right, that has to be there, that shouldn't be there?
So we're a value proposition mostly. We built our brand of being a really good value prospect for customers who want to buy toys and games, and we found that market are really into buy now pay later options. I think it's now 40% of our checkouts are buy now pay later options. That's split mainly 35% ClearPay, 5% Klarna. Lay-by has just been integrated now and we're already seeing pickup there. But we can see that the people, especially in the value market where there's lower levels of affluence, they need these options to be able to get the product that they want. And I think that's really tailored to our consumers. Those especially the BNPLs are really tailored to our consumers. Yep. You can see it probably, we're a low value retailer. Average order value is £40 sort of thing. Whereas if you look at high-end retailers, again, you can see they're going to need those buy now pay later options as well. So that's where we find it really relevant.
I think this year, especially with inflation and fuel prices as well, you're probably going to see that increase even further.
100%. Until it gets regulated and the whole thing crashes down. At that point, it's going to be really interesting to see how, especially the fashion industry, which is so dominated by buy now pay later options. Let's see how they cope with it.
Absolutely. Any more insights on the audience?
Yeah, to me, we work with a lot of different types of retailers, B2B, B2C, different verticals as well. So to me, it's a combination of the audience and the vertical together that's really determining what you're going to show to them. To give a good example, I think if you're in, say the wedding business, right? You need to be able to show stuff that can get there tomorrow, and they know it can get there tomorrow. So things like lead times are really important in that kind of business. Likewise, if you're in the kind of florist gift market, if that birthday present doesn't arrive on that day that you specified, then that's a problem. But with other things, like if you're selling something like sofas, obviously you're not going to get that there in 2 days, and neither should you. But you can add lead times there, and I think with the audience, you really need to understand, that vertical combination with it. Like some people are prepared to wait a time in order to get things like free shipping, and you should leverage that because you're going to have another percentage of the audience that will pay to get that faster, and that's becoming more and more so. So you can offset your free shipping costs with a higher kind of slightly upped rate on your 2-day, 3-day, add a lead time there and push that back. But you've got to be thinking about who am I as a retailer, who am I serving, and what audience do I have and what different types of audience do I have. Like wedding shoes the day before your wedding is kind of important, but maybe if it's 3 months later, it's not so important. And these are the considerations that matter. Like the toy business is quite a different market in that regard.
You don't want to mess with parents whose toys haven't arrived for their kids.
There you go, yeah. Birthday gifts.
Quite emotional, yeah. What I want to add here is that we are all optimizing for revenue per visitor. So at the end of the day, if we don't know the margin per visitor, at least we are optimizing for revenue per visitor. And if that's the objective, I think the audience is crucially important because we're all in the business of changing customer behavior. So on the website, if we don't take into account the fact that we have existing customers which have bought in this way and they are having this kind of expectations, the checkout is very, let's say, volatile. So basically there is the zero moment of truth. So basically what we've seen with in the past, so very few merchants are aware about their language. So what's important is to be relevant, as you've said, in terms of the payment options, but also to sustain the spell, let's say, to make them go further, because you are at the cashier's desk over there on the checkout. So if you previously knew that you have an existing customer which is happy or unhappy, or he bought with this kind of method, then you should diminish the friction. And many merchants are adding a lot of things on the checkout page. Some of them are making it very clean, but the caveat here is that you need to understand what's relevant for your customers at that particular moment. And you can leverage a lot of stuff, and basically it's not about the third-party data, but about the first-party data. So if you can get any kind of first-party data, let's say in your case, Alex, you have toys, but if you know that this is for a girl or a boy, or if you know that this is for a present, and last time you had that existing customer, you can add a few things which are relevant for them at that particular moment, because you want to diminish the cart abandonment rate. At the end of the day, that's the business that you're in.
So how would you kind of look at what is irrelevant then? What was the last kind of option in your checkout where you actually thought, this is irrelevant, I should remove it? Or have you done that to any extent? Or, if you advise people on removing options?
So we had, when we introduced Klarna, we were super excited. This was our first buy now, pay later. And a couple of months later, Dan, our head of digital, came in and said, right, I really want to go forward with ClearPay now. And my thinking was, well, we have a buy now, pay later option. So why do we need to go and add a second one, which is definitely more expensive to the retailer? Why do we need to add and split? I know they want choice, but ultimately this is just going to cost us an extra couple of %. And he just said, trust me. I was like, all right, let's go for it. We didn't test. I'm sorry. I just went with his gut. And what we learned massively was that payment options aren't only just an option for customers of should I choose A or B. We actually found that payment options, and each one has their own different levels of power. They're actually communities of customers as well. So a really interesting stat. The day we went live with ClearPay, we had thousands of searches on our site for PS5s. I was thinking, what the heck's going on? Like, why all of a sudden we've never had searches for PS5s, maybe a couple. Today we have thousands. And we learned very quickly that actually communities, people will shop with some retailers that are in their payment option. So ClearPay has their own group. People use the Amazon Pay directory. People use the Klarna Shop directory as well. So people actually using these methods as their own shopping and their own communities. The challenge is that you can just level in, continually adding in, and it's a challenge that we've faced. And hopefully, when we rebuild our site, in the coming months, we'll get that right. But it's so difficult not to just clog that checkout every time you have another really relevant community come into place.
Yeah.
Just talking on removing stuff. I think one of the big things is, like you're saying, about the checkout can get really crowded, right? And making good decisions about what you're putting in there. And obviously, being over in the US, it's been pretty interesting lately with, on the tech side. I think working with trusted partners is key, and understanding where your data's, going, and what that's being used for. We're starting to see a move now with, the Amazon buy button over in the US with buy with Prime. And obviously there's a lot of analytics that are around that can be used, against you, if so wished, right? And some of this stuff is getting resold. And I think understanding your partners, and that's one of the great things I say about PayPal and the integrity of them, just as a, somebody we've worked with over the years. Just knowing that they're invested as much as you are in your business, and solely your business, I think is key. And I would always be, as somebody who's technical, asking people what's happening with my data, and where is it going, and making sure that you keep that ownership of it as much as you possibly can, because I do think that it can be a bit Wild West out there in checkout at the moment.
I'll pay you later, Karen, thank you.
Buy now, pay later? No?
And Valentin, have you ever had to say to your clients, you know, this just isn't working, remove it, and has there been any resistance to that, or, you know, do you find that actually they're quite willing to remove things that aren't really gaining any traction at the checkout?
Every company that we are working with has someone which is like the internal champion. So there is someone which is so stubborn that he wants to demonstrate with the data, and then he's doing all this job with his peers or his managers. However, there are some hippos, let's say, which they think they know better, and they have this internal friction. So usually those persons which are data driven and they want to test out things are either leaving the company, and we work, for instance, in the last years we work with a person which left 2 companies already, and they keep on testing. So yeah, there is resistance, but when the data shows the truth, and if you have statistical significance to of course, then that always helps. And also I think CRO is becoming a thing right now, so people are looking to improve the conversion rates, because there are, I don't know how is in your companies, maybe we have time for questions or not, but the return on ad spend is so low right now, it's almost half for some merchants. So at the end of the day, it's about extracting as much value as you can from the existing traffic, and that means, of course, having enough relevant payment options, but also testing out the messaging, because framing is so important. How you say things, it's more important than the things you are saying at some moments.
Yeah.
Just on this removal, I think one in 3 customers is going to fail to convert if you ask them to create an account before they go through the checkout. Absolutely. So like that simple move of just shifting that to the end rather than at the start makes a really big difference. And it's worth kind of understanding some of those things. Like there is a tendency, I think, by like developers, there's a lot of developers in the audience, you want to kind of show your strength, and that can spill out into a lot of stuff on there. But and people say that, you know, with ShipperHQ, like, where can we see a site where it's in action? And we're like, well, you can't, because actually when it's in action, it looks like a really simple interface. And I think that's the real beauty of great checkouts, is when you really can't see what's going on there, and it's that, you know, classic frictionless experience that people want. So if you're seeing friction in your checkout, go and work out where that is, right, and what's happening there. So Absolutely. That's where the tools come into play.
Yeah, I have to say I'm always surprised when I come across a website these days where there's still forced accounts, because
crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, we've got at PayPal, we have a lot of data around the conversion and drop off at that point, and I still don't get why anyone does it. It suggests to me that it's the marketeers in the company that kind of hold the reins. But you can still get someone to create an account at the end of the process, once they're a bona fide customer, with a hook in with things like track your parcel, or, you know, gain
it afterwards,
points.
Or emails.
It can also depend, though, on, you know, how a company perceives the lifetime value of a customer. You have certain companies that there will almost be zero value to that customer's first interaction with you. So if they don't create an account immediately, then there's almost no point in them completing the checkout and buying that product, because there is no value to them until they're a lifetime customer. So I can get it from that perspective. It seems frustrating to us, but if your first interaction with a company is of zero relevance to them, then I can understand why they would want to keep it like that. Okay.
So just to sort of wrap up towards the sort of final question, what is just right, and what would you say is the most impactful thing you can do around checkout? You kind of said, a couple of you have said 3 or 4 options. It looks about right. I know that you have quite a few options across your site. What do you feel is I mean, aside from ClearPay, obviously,
They're not paying me.
what's been the most impactful thing? It could be something around maybe returns, shipping, something that sort of, sort of draws that person through and sort of gives them that comfort to complete the checkout.
So for us, each option gives us something different. Certain options give us the community that they bring in. PayPal, I think, gave us and still gives us a huge amount of credibility. We're not a large retailer. We're not one of these big national retailers that everybody's heard of. There's a huge amount of suspicion when someone comes onto a site, especially when they see something cheaper than everywhere else. They're thinking there's got to be something wrong. It's very British. There's got to be something wrong with it. It can't actually just be cheap. So PayPal gives us a lot of credibility. Amazon Pay gives us a lot of credibility. So I think each one has their own really important factor that we kind of build in. We get a lot of support from certain payment gateways. Like Amazon gives us a lot of support to promote product, signing up people to Amazon Pay as well, which is a huge factor in why we actually offer them. Yeah. So I think each one has a very important small role in that process.
Okay.
Please.
She's stumped.
I'm not stumped. Oh, sorry, I was letting you go. I mean, delivery is the first, physical point of contact with your customer, right? So, they've got to trust you. And how many times have you gone for a checkout, right? You've purchased something, you really, really want it, gone through, got to the end, placed the order, and then you're like, when am I going to get it, right? And you go and search the delivery page, you start reading that, and there's that thing in the back of your mind of, is it going to be 3 days, 10 days, 20 days? Do I trust this retailer? So in my mind, the biggest thing you can do is get a date, and a date that you can actually promise, right? So just knowing, right, I cannot deliver next day if it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, make sure you're telling the customer that if they're going to go for next day, that's actually going to come the day after, because they might not want to pay that premium. And to me, that is just 50 to 70% cart abandonments around, free shipping and that shipping experience that they're getting. It's the massive thing, and Amazon is ploughing millions and millions and, a lot more than that in this. I mean, AWS is basically supporting them with that program. You can compete against it, but you've got to have a strategy around it. You can't just go, we'll do 3 over 50 quid and away we go. It's a little bit more than that. So I think not enough people really invest the time in thinking about that and thinking about the other aspects of checkout. And these little changes will have much more impact than a lot of stuff that you can do on the product page. So I will be doing that. And I think we spoke earlier about that lead up to it as well. So, getting stuff on your homepage, getting stuff on the product page. Do you want to collect it there? What's your postcode? Can you collect it there? Just incredibly important, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, even the buy now, pay later, right? Seeing that, and somebody who's shopping, say, for gym equipment, knowing that they can do buy now, pay later early. Yeah. They don't want to find out they can or can't in the checkout.
Yeah, certainly a best practice integration of buy now, pay later at PayPal is to have that upstream messaging to give people the knowledge that they can pay that way well before the checkout.
Yeah.
Because it's almost a bit obsolete having the button at the checkout
exactly,
without that
yeah.
messaging up front.
It's building trust, isn't it? And kind of, making people keep taking those steps forward is key, but thinking about what that customer journey is, I think.
Absolutely.
I can add something and also share an experiment which was the one of the best experiments that I've encountered when I was close enough to see what companies were doing. So there are hygiene parts and cosmetics parts. The hygiene parts are around having enough payment options, having people actually going through the process without all this friction. But the cosmetics part, it's quite important as well. And talking about cosmetics, there is this company Avon. They were using our system, and they got out there and they started to ask people why they were abandoning the checkout. And after having enough responses, they determined an anomaly, and the anomaly was that the ladies which were looking to buy makeup on the website, they weren't, let's say, ready to buy because they thought that the colors on the screen will not match their eyes. And they've invented this type of virtual assistant, which was asking them, what color are your eyes? And then they've started to sustain this kind of messaging with green eyes never tell lies, and whatever. So they've got the whole journey through the website, and on the checkout they've sustained the message with the fact that this product is for them. I mean, with this green eyes, whatever. So at the end of this journey, the cart abandonment rate dropped 68%. So you couldn't get to this kind of figure with the hygiene part. So you can do your homework, but if you sustain the customers to believe that this is the relevant product for them, they will buy. So eventually it's also, and the learnings that we've got from this fantastic experiment that they rolled to all their markets as well, is that you need to ask your customers what's going on, because you can come up with a lot of hypotheses around why they are not buying, tweak the system with a lot of things, but don't do your homework properly. So at the end of the day, it's about relevance, but that relevance, you can't get to it if you don't have a process to optimize the conversion rate or to decrease the abandonment rate.
Absolutely. Know your customer. I think we probably have time. I don't know where Joe's gone, but I think a couple of questions from the floor, if anyone wants to be brave enough to ask a question for the panels. Yeah? Okay. Just shout.
Yeah, I will try. So, you are talking a lot about modifying the checkout, testing the checkout, which is quite risky because it's the most important functionality on the website. So what are the methods and what merchants can do to make sure that the checkout is working all the time when they change a lot? So they are adding methods, they are adding payments. Are there any methods to make sure that every customer can use the solution?
Yeah, it's called QA. So basically, we are a vendor. We provide the technology to do split testing, and usually how it works, if the website has enough traffic, you validate it by rolling out only for 10% of the customers, and you look at all these micro conversions, like is the page loading, can people go through the whole process, and you can basically gradually release that test for 50% of the visitors. There were all sorts of stories, because you don't want to launch a test, for instance, on Friday evening. We got a company which got 1,100 orders with the same price. It was like something like 230. So you can do a lot of hiccups, but if you have a QA team and if your developers know their game, they can do it quite good enough.
Small changes.
Baby steps, yeah.
Yeah. Alex, do you perform, what kind of methodology do you have when you put in a payment choice or a shipping choice or a returns choice or whatever it might be? What kind of methodology is there leading up to that, and how do you?
So we've never tested when in split environments across offering different payment options, because really you have to, as you guys said, you have to have that message the whole way across your site. So there's so many elements of the site that you have to have. You have to build up throughout the site what you offer and when you offer it and stuff like that. But it's fairly, for us in adding payment options, it's quite easy to go back and have a look at a week's comparative data and see how things have performed comparatively. We're actually about to launch a really interesting test. I know that Hermes now Every. I hope they didn't fool everybody with that. They changed their name to Every. I hope. So we know there's a lot of unhappiness with the service that they offer. So we're actually going to offer the same shipping option of 0 to 2 days or 2 to 4 days, whatever it is, which is free standard, but we're going to offer the same shipping option of 2 to 4 days with DPD and actually name the carrier and actually see what the uptake is. People always say, oh, I hate Hermes, I'll never shop with Hermes. What they don't realise is it's actually really, really good value for money, which is why people don't need to pay for shipping. So we'll actually, it's going to be really interesting to see how much of that talk actually changes to actually conversion and purchasing.
Yeah. It's interesting to see putting that choice into the audience's hand, like customer's hand, how much that will drive conversion as well.
I know everybody
And
says,
satisfaction.
yeah, everyone says I'd much rather DPD or DHL deliver my parcel than every. Will you pay for it though? That's going to be the interesting thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there maybe one more question? Oh, I can see it.
We're just curious, Karen, I'm not sure if you said on the number of shipping options, did you say 1 or 2?
I mean, the click and collect, I think you get it out of the way at the start, but and obviously I'm a bit swayed because I've lived in the US for a while, but I would say, you know, two to three max, right? So, you know, a free shipping option, if you can do it next day, great. Otherwise, you know, 2 to 3 day. I mean, the norm in the US now is 2-day delivery. But as I said, you know, the thing around that is if you're shipping a sofa, you're not going to be able to offer that. So in that case, you're just maybe giving them one option or you're giving them a white glove and another. So it is relevant to that audience as well.
What I heard during the talk, I'm not sure if I've got it right, I thought
I think I just changed my mind halfway through.
before, and that got me thinking is, has anyone looked at, or is there a place for segmentation inside the checkout, do different demographics, want more choice, whether it's with shipping?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, B2B customers and B2C is the obvious one, and one of the great things that, you know, Magento, Adobe support is the customer groups where you can do this segmentation, and even, you know, like the time, right? Like we have some people and they're selling all the way up until Christmas Eve, and obviously you reduce your options as the time goes on because you can't say I can deliver you a Christmas tree if it's, you know, the day before Christmas Eve, but you can maybe get it there, you know, next day delivery. So these things do play into each other, I think, a little bit. But if you're sort of sitting there going, hey, you've got Raw Mail, you've got Parcel Force, you've got Hermes, you've got this, that and the other, I would say don't do that and do something like rate shopping underneath and then just give them the generic, this is 2-day shipping. They don't need to know all the names of these, you know, couriers that you're using. That's irrelevant. They just want to know this is the cheapest option for me to get in this period of time. And some of them are going to want a faster method on that, and some of them are going to be very price focused and want a longer lead time with free shipping. So to me, there's the obvious free choices, but the audience does impact it, as we said.
Although it does sound like a customer could be put off by choice of, if they're renowned for not really doing the parcel.
One of the biggest things we do with customers is get them to strip down the methods they're showing, because I just think people just go, you know, well, we've added this, we've got that and everything, and then it's all shown there, and it's just, people, I think, are just confused by it. So we do a lot of work to just strip that back, you know, one for each day and different kind of angling at different types of customers that you've got. Yeah. The value-based, the price-based, you know, it does vary, unfortunately.
Yeah, I have to say, I was on a site the other day, a sort of beauty site, and there were so many payment options, and I work in payments. I've worked in payments for 17 years, and I didn't know some of them. I was like, who are these relevant for? I mean, it was probably 17 payment options, and that to me is far too
It's just too many, really, isn't it? But it may be at different price bands on that site that they would want to, like, do you want to offer buy now, pay later on a, you know, £10 product? I don't know, right? But maybe if it's a £200 one, then you put it in, you know. Same with the returns, right? It's a similar thing.
Absolutely.
Does that help, or just confuse the hell out of you?
That's fine.
Perhaps another question? Yeah.
There was a lot of discussion around buy now, pay later options. The thing is, you know, the recent reports indicate is like 40% of the people asking money to repay the debt and buy now, pay later. At the same time, Klarna is going to send data to the regulator for the credit references, which might affect from next year. Considering we're going to merchant being won't be ethical and sustainable stuff, what should be a merchant's position in the future during the checkout using these type of payment methods? I know it's a bit kind of out of scope, but there was a lot of discussion around it, and I want to see your position on it.
Do you kind of mean from a moral aspect in terms of...
Yeah, but it's all the market, the merchants wanting to go towards a more ethical approach on everything, even with how you turn out and how you deliver.
Yeah.
Buy now, pay later feels debt, and it could be even more debt in the future, especially with younger generations.
Yeah.
How should merchants handle this?
Alex, you want to take that one?
It's difficult because part of us, you know, kind of probably all feel that we just want to enjoy it while it lasts, and try and just side part the moral element of it a little bit as well. It's really difficult to do. I think there's got to be a lot of work in the financial side of it as opposed to our side of it to actually regulate it and make it responsible lending. You don't want a country that's just saddled, especially young people, that are just saddled with huge amount of debt. So I think there's got to be a huge amount of regulation from the financial institution part. I'm seeing a couple of things which I think might be quite exciting, things like open banking. I'm not sure how many of you have seen that so far. It's used quite a lot when it comes to bill payment, Amex bill payment, that sort of thing. I think that's an area where if banks start to take responsibility for this sort of thing and want to get a piece of that BNPL industry, then they can start to look to say, well, there's open banking, it's direct bank transfer, kind of like you do in Germany, but setting up direct debits, they have your credit file on file, they can see all of that information, and I think that'll be a really positive way for the open banking world to move forward and bring this BNPL into a responsible position. But I don't run open banking, so I can't make them do it.
And just as from PayPal's perspective, we've been very careful in the rollout of buy now, pay later. Certainly not as aggressive as others in terms of pushing the marketing, and very careful to look at. I mean, we're in a fortunate position where we know our buyers. We have 24 million account holders in the UK, so we can actually see what they spend their money on. We can see what's attached to their PayPal wallet, etc. So we're very careful to keep on top of whether it's affordable, how many they're taking out at once, because obviously each one's a closed credit agreement. So we're in that position where we can decline if we feel that they're not in a position to afford it. So we've been very careful, I would say, to be as inclusive as possible, because as you say, Alex, Karen, it's really important to have those options, because there are people that are, cash poor. They might be time rich, but they're cash poor, so they can wait for their delivery, but they can't. They need to split that payment. So we see it used on the sort of luxury side, etc., and that could be anyone. It could be very affluent people using it there, but one of the core merchants that we have using it is actually just a supermarket's own clothing brand, and it's just parents trying to be able to afford their child's school uniform. So you don't want to take it away, because I think it's actually a critical product that's there for a very good reason, I think particularly this year as well. But I do agree as well that there is a moral obligation, not necessarily on the merchants, but more so, as you say, Alex, on the actual financial institutions to make sure people don't get themselves into chronic debt. Does that help?
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's a helpful tool for everyone. I mean, we want to sell stuff.
Yes. Yeah, because we're all in the same boat.
There's a fine balance. I want to see your view on how this will go on. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Excellent. I don't know if that's... Is there any...
I think they might be sick of us.
Time or...
Let's get out of here.
Well, thank you everyone for attending, and thanks very much to our brilliant panelists as well.